one of the most common questions I get is about certification and career path. And no doubt that those things will improve your performance and improve your ability to make money. So this week, we're talking to BICSI.
Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you got to ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? In this podcast, you'll learn the differences between a 66 and 110 punch tool, the proper way to install a support cable, along with testing and certifying the cable. What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. So join us as we talk about the ever-changing world of telecommunications. From ISP to OSP, from copper to fiber, design to installation. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Christopher Hobbs. Christopher Hobbs, I came across him in some of my circles running around in Cable Dog University on Facebook, and I've emailed him a few times, and we've met at a BICSI conference, although I don't remember that, and I apologize because I meet lots of people at BICSI conferences.
Didn't have the beard back then.
There you go. Welcome to the show, Christopher. How are you doing today?
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Chuck.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So for those who may not know you, why don't you tell us who you are and give us just a little background about your experience and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I've been in the ICT industry since the early 90s. I started in 93 as a technician for a computer company, and that's back when we were building PCs and networking was first starting to happen. And I got to come in when Ethernet and Token Ring and ThickNet and ThinNet and all the other good things that were going on back in the early 90s. And the company I worked for started doing network cabling, and I really was more interested in that, and I didn't see a future in computers because I thought they were going to become a commodity. So I had a coworker. We did quite a few network installations, and the owner of the company decided he didn't really want to do that anymore. He wanted to focus on his computer building business. So I left along with my coworker, and we started a network cabling and consulting company. And we did that for several years, and then he split with me. He went his way and took kind of the construction side of it, and I took the consulting and design side of the business. So I did that for a couple of years, and I picked up a contract to go work in South America. So I actually spent a year living in Venezuela and another year living in Guyana, setting up network infrastructure, radio and satellite communications for an engineering firm that was doing gold and diamond exploration in Venezuela and Guyana. So I came back home and I was looking for a job, and this was in the around 2007. And I got hired by a company that was looking for a project manager to manage some very large projects that they had. So I started out with them and set up their project management office. That's when I got my BICSI RTPM. Back then it was actually the TPM, and then it got changed into the RTPM. And what I learned was that as you're doing project management, you start doing a lot of design work. So I got my RCDD and was doing that. And around about 2014, as everybody knows, as a project manager, you're on 24 by 365. You never get a break. So I was kind of looking for a little bit of a break. I had two young kids at the time, and I wanted to spend more time at home. And BICSI was actually looking to hire full-time instructors. So I applied, and I got hired on by BICSI in 2014 and became a full-time instructor for them for a couple years. And then they were looking to, the individual that was managing our program for our partners. We have partners that are globally that facilitate our content, our design and our installation programs. He was moving on to another opportunity. So they gave me the opportunity to advance and move up as the manager of training provider services for BICSI. So I currently handle our partners globally. We have quite a few certified trainers globally, and then we have over 90 partner organizations that we work with. And that's pretty much what I do now. I have my RCDD, my RTPM, my outside plan, as well as my data center design consultant, or my BICSI credentials, plus some credentials from other organizations outside BICSI.
So it sounds like you're pretty well versed and a perfect fit for the role that you're doing now. Um, the It's funny because when I'm telling people my credentialing, I always put in there former certified trainer because I used to be the BICSI certified trainer for Hinkles McCoy many years ago. So I always make sure I put in that word former so that way people don't think I'm still a trainer. I tell you what, that was a tough class. It was a TE 300, I think it was.
Yeah, so it's the TE 350 for the installation program, which we still have around, and then we have our train the trainer class, the T3, which is what one of the classes that I teach for BICSI. Usually we bring in another TDS as well to assist, and that's where we actually take people with BICSI credentials and we turn them into certified trainers. And as you know, being able to explain it, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And that's really what we try to do, is ensure that people can explain topics simply.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, we have a real technical industry, and that's a challenge as an instructor because it's a dry subject. So you got to find a way to bring it to life. So a lot of times I'll use examples from my past experiences and stuff, and then they can usually relate to that and stuff. So yeah, as I'm teaching, because I teach, 75 classes a year as in my current role, my day job. And I've probably, if I did the calculation once, I'm probably about 20,000 people that I've taught over my career. And I would say probably about 25 to 30% of the people I talk to have never heard of BICSI. And that always kind of amazed me because BICSI does a great job of putting its name out there and what they do. And I always wondered, well, how's BICSI putting a message out to let them know who they are? How do you guys overcome that challenge?
So one of the things that we do is marketing. We do attend trade shows that are not just BICSI trade shows. One of the things we've done is reached out to the National Electrical Contractors Association, and we attend their shows. We attend quite a few of the data center shows that are out there. Of course, with COVID happening in the last year, that's kind of cut down on the ability to do that. So we're trying to ramp that back up, and we'll see where things fall out for next fiscal year for us, which starts July 1, and kind of what trade shows and other organizations that are out there that we can partner with. We also advertise in magazines and on websites and things of that nature.
Very good. So who is BICSI? If someone comes up to you and says, who's BICSI? How would you respond to that?
Sure. So one of the things that I would do is I would say BICSI stands for Building Industry Consulting Services International Incorporated. And the main thing to understand is BICSI is a nonprofit association. So we serve professionals in the ICT, or the Information and Communications Technology community. And what that means is we're run by our members. We're not a for-profit organization that's out there just selling courses and manuals and books and all these other things. We're actually run by our committees and our board of directors. So this is not something that individuals, go out there and it's a for-profit organization that's sole purpose is to gain money. Our sole purpose is to advance the ICT community. I mean, that's what we're about. We want to make sure that we're the preeminent global resource for developing standards, providing credentials, accreditation, and knowledge transfer for the ICT community. And that's really, I think, what we do a great job of. If you go to individuals who've been in our courses and taken our content or used our manuals or our standards, that they'll say that, we definitely have a step above what most of the organizations are that are out there.
Yeah, I've got several of your publications. As I mentioned, I teach a lot of classes. Almost every single class, I always reference the pocket field guides.
Oh, those things are great.
I use them a lot. And I also have, a soft copy of the TMM. I got a copy of the wireless design manual. I'm actually just about ready to purchase copies of the ITSA manual. I was actually a long time ago. That's what the plaque on the back wall is. You can't actually see it because of my big fat head. Many moons ago, I actually was on a couple committees to help write it. So I just gotta get plugged in. And it's funny, I tell people all the time, there's 4 ways you can answer any single question that gets thrown at you, right? You can answer how you were trained, and that may or may not be right, as you and I both know, right?
Oh, yes.
You can answer the way the code says to do it. And we know codes are for minimum quality construction or safety. Or you can answer the way the standards say to do it. And the standards quite often mimic the code, but sometimes they exceed it. Or the best way to answer the question is through a technical document like the TDMM or the ITSA manual or the pocket field guide, because they always exceed it, and they're going to give you best practice. I love those documents, and I think everybody should have them. I really do.
Yeah, that's the key term there, best practices. You've got your AHJ at the top of the pyramid, and that's your codes that you're going to have to follow. And then you've got your standards that are below that. And then you've got your best practices, which is really where you should be pulling that information. It ties both the codes and standards together. And then lastly is, the way we've always done it, or, what we've been trained by, which is oftentimes the most least reliable way of determining how to answer a question.
And let's be honest, the authority having jurisdiction, for those of me, I know that's the electrical inspector. There's some good ones, but most of them, when it comes to low voltage, don't really understand our industry. And that's where these books really have helped me in the past, because, like, for example, in the code book, it says that the work's got to be done in a neat and workmanlike manner. Define that for me. That could my opinion of neat and workmanlike manner be different from somebody else's or different from yours? Oh, absolutely it could. So that's where this manual is complete. You can somebody say, look, it says right here, this is BICSI. You know who they are. You just explained. And they say to do it this way, and that's a best practice. And that helps you a lot. Never get an argument with an AHJ, but it gives you fuel for that fire to help prove your point in a non-confrontational kind of way.
Oh, yes, definitely. Well, and that's the other thing, that's one of the things BICSI does provide. We provide that technical knowledge. I mean, not only do we have the technical publications and periodicals that we put out, but BICSI is an ANSI certified organization for publishing standards. And that's really important as well. So we have internationally adopted industry standards. And I know you've taken the Data Center 102 class, and that is based entirely on the BICSI 002 2019 Data Center Design Standard, which is a fantastic document for anybody that's out there that's going to be going and trying to build a data center, not just the computer room, but determining site location, determining your physical attributes for your building, your safety and security. I mean, there's so much that's in that standard that's just unbelievable for a 600-page document, the wealth of knowledge that you get in there.
It's a great class too, and I'm telling you right now, you better commit to it, because there's a lot of information in it.
It is a lot
of information in it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I got my DCDC in 2011 off the 2011 version. It's a 2019. So gotcha. I will say, if you're going to take a test, take it now before it gets bigger. One
of the people in in my TDMM study group that I'm running right now, it's all volunteer. We just kind of get together on Zoom once a week, and we read 70 pages. Then we get together and we kind of talk about it. And one of the ladies who's in that group, she's new to the industry. She's only been in the industry for like 3 years, and she's already got her DCDC certification. And she's working toward a project. And she it's funny, because I know a lot of information because I've been in the industry a long time. And she thinks I'm so knowledgeable. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. You got your DCDC first? I've been through that class. That's a hard class, So,
definitely a hard class. Well, I always tell people, the ICT industry is like this for knowledge. And I only know about that much.
Exactly.
But I know enough people to fill in the gaps there that I can contact and get those individuals involved if I don't know something.
Right.
And that's really what it's about, and it's great that she's doing professional development. I mean, that's one of the other things, BICSI we provide are those globally recognized credentials. And it's not just, in ICT design, but also in installation and project management. Those are really important for individuals that are trying to prove that they know something. And every credential I've ever gotten, the time, effort, and money that I've put into it has paid me back 100-fold for Absolutely. Every one of the credentials that I've gotten. And it's entirely worth going and pursuing those credentials. And BICSI is a great organization to get them through, because we are, again, globally recognized. It's not just a credential for the United States or for South America or for Africa or Australia or the Pacific region. I mean, it's globally recognized, and that's really what we try to focus on, not just for the design, but also for the installation.
Yep. Two things I want to circle back to real quickly, and I just want to make sure, and I want to put this out there. And the reason I want to put this out there is because I talk to a lot of people, being a trainer and traveling the country, I talk to a lot of people, and quite often, I hear BICSI sure does charge an awful lot of money for a nonprofit organization. Well, just because they're nonprofit doesn't mean they don't have a surplus, and you have to have a surplus in order to make sure that you still exist, because there's going to be lean years and good years, right? How would you, if I get asked that question in the future, what would you think would be a good way for me to explain to somebody because they get hung up in that whole nonprofit. And we both know that that doesn't necessarily mean anything. What's a good way to respond to that person who says that or has that kind of
So
feeling?
that's a great question. So you have to have money to be able to reinvest into the programs that you're offering. And if you go look at the programs that we have between the data center side or um, ICT infrastructure side for, like the DD 102, outside plant, project management, the installation program, for us to be able to develop those programs, publish those documents and everything else, it does take money. And, we don't make a profit. I mean, that's, we're not a profitable, organization that's out there to make money, 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 money. We're out there to advance our industry. And we still have to have income coming in, and courses are expensive, but you also have to look at the time and effort it takes to develop one of those courses. I mean, it's hundreds of hours just
Yeah.
to develop one of the courses that's a 35-hour, 40-hour class. That you've got manuals that have to be published and developed. You've got, the staff time for editing those and all. You've got all these individuals that are out there facilitating these courses. So there's a huge investment in that, and BICSI keeps reinvesting in itself to bring out new programs, on a continual basis and update our programs. Our standards and everything have to be updated at a minimum of every 5 years, or they're not valid anymore. So not for profit doesn't mean that you're not making money. If you don't make money, you're going to not exist after a while. What it means is that you're taking that money and reinvesting it back into the organization to make more content and make things better for our community.
Absolutely. And the second thing I want to roll back to is because you mentioned that BICSI is a ANSI certified content creator. What about the standards? Now, I was talking to Tim Coleman in an interview earlier this week, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I think he said that BICSI does have representation in the NEC code panels. Is that true?
So BICSI, we don't have direct voting representation for the NEC. What we do have is an individual who sits on our standard side who does put in comments on any new content coming out in the NEC. So that's what we do. We go through and we comment as an organization changes that are upcoming to the NEC if we feel that they're going to be detrimental to the ICT industry.
Perfect.
And then with our standards, again, we're ANSI. We have ANSI credentialed, or shouldn't say ANSI credentialed. ANSI recognizes us as a organization to publish standards based on their requirements for a standard to be published. So again, we publish those standards like the 002 2019 data center standard and the other standards that we have out there.
Do you know the number off the top of your head, how many publications you guys have?
Ooh, boy, I wish I'd had a number I could give you. I don't want
I
to
should
comment
have,
because if I do,
I
Clark
was going to say, I should have
or
submitted
Jeff
that question
Silvera is
ahead
going
of
to get mad
time.
at me. Yeah, so we have our best practices manuals, our outside plant design reference manual. We've got the telecommunications distribution methods manual, the award-winning telecommunications distribution methods manual. We've got our telecommunications project methods manual. We have those are the ITSM, the ITS installation methods manual for the installation program. And then we've got our standards, which go through 01 through I think 19. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the list of the standards that we have.
Cool. Yeah, you guys definitely put out a lot of publications. So now that we know who BICSI is and how you're reaching out to the community, what's a good career path for as far as somebody who's just getting in the industry and they're looking for some kind of a certification? Because certification means more money. Let's be honest, right?
Sure. So, here are all the community segments that are out there that are in the ICT industry. You've got commercial and residential infrastructure. You've got data center, both design and operations. We've got outside plant distribution, electronic safety and security, building automations, wireless, network infrastructure, telecommunications project management, and then installation and verification of technology systems. So when we look at career fields, typically a lot of people, especially if they're coming out of high school, are going to start out as an installer. And we have an actual program designed for them for a credential. It's our BICSI Installer 1. It's a non-renewable certificate program. It's only valid for 3 years. And that allows those individuals to come into the field with absolutely no experience and be able to understand what ICT systems are and be able to do basic installation for an organization. And then once they've determined that, hey, this is the career field that I want to be in, then typically what they do is they move up to the installer 2 or the installer 2 copper. This allows them, after a year of experience, to be able to go through and learn more about copper systems, more about testing and troubleshooting, more about shielded systems, which are becoming vitally important in some organizations because of EMI issues, especially when we look at our industrial environments that are out there. So that gives them another leg up, an advancement into the ICT industry. After that, they've got another couple years and at least a year working with fiber. They can move to the installer 2 fiber. That allows them to show that they know how to use an OTDR, how they know fusion splicing, terminating fiber with different types of connectors, and that gives them another advancement up into the field. Well, now that these individuals have been in the field 2, 3, 4, 5 years, everybody's different. It's not a race. The whole career field, a lot of people will say, well, this individual is moving faster than I am. It's not a race. You're only racing against yourself. Well, after that 3, 4, 5 years or however long it is, the next logical step is typically you're running crews or you're running teams of installers, and that would be where the BICSI technician falls in. You're going to be dealing with a little bit of project management. You're going to be dealing with how to set up your telecommunication spaces, a lot more on safety because you're managing crews, your pathways, all of those things kind of fall into the BICSI technician. So, but that's not the end. A lot of people think, well, I'm a tech, I'm going to stay in the field forever, and I'm going to be climbing a ladder, I'm going to be doing all that. No, that's one of the great things about what BICSI offers. We have a career path to potentially a 6-figure salary, and that's moving out of the technician field and moving into typically what the next thing is project management. That's usually where people fall into. And again, it's not where you have to go. Don't think that, that's the next place that you have to be, but a lot of people that are BICSI technicians, they move into project management. They're brought in the office so that they can manage larger projects. And the BICSI RTPM offers them the ability to get some actual training through the PM 102 class to understand how to properly manage projects, because project management's its own career field. It has its own way of doing things. It's not just punching down patch panels or terminating or splicing fiber. There are certain things that you have to be able to learn how to do to properly manage projects and not be a firefighter, which is what a lot of project managers, that's how they start out. Well, once you're a project manager, what you find is most of the projects that you manage, or a lot of them, the customer doesn't understand what their need is or their requirements. They don't have proper documentation or a design. Or you get designs that are incomplete and you have to finish that design. So that really leads into the other design credentials that we have depending on what type of projects that you're working on. If you're working on your commercial ICT government type projects, then it's going to be the BICSI RCDD. That's the next logical step. You're going to move into that and you're going to start doing a lot more design work. If you're working with data centers, we have the DCDC, the Data Center Design Consultant. And then if you're dealing with outside plant, you're going to be looking at the OSP credential. If you're dealing with your pathways between your buildings on a commercial type campus or a military base, then the outside plant makes perfect sense to be able to pursue that. And it's not that you just get one. I mean, you can go after all of them. I mean, I've got all the design credentials myself because I've done work in all those industries and locations. So it's a career path and it's not a race, but it gives you the opportunity to be able to advance and gain credentials, gain the knowledge, and show that you're actually capable of doing these jobs.
Very cool. Maybe you can help me with a question I just received an email the other day.
Sure.
This email came to me, I guess, as a result of one of my live streams. And I only know him as IG. That's the only thing he has in his email. But
okay.
Here's the email. So maybe help me respond for this guy. And hopefully he's listening. He says, Chuck, active duty installer here, looking for the next challenge in my career and not sure what to do next. I'm a BICSI certified technician, and I will be exiting the military in a few years. What advice would you give someone in my position?
Wow. So he's former military. So there's a lot of organizations that are out there that are looking for former military ICT installers. If he has a security clearance, that's even a bigger bonus. So my suggestion is for him, depending on what his background is, if he's got quite a bit where he's running projects, he might want to look at doing project management. But I know how the military does a lot with their installers. They do a lot of design work as well. The RCDD might be a good choice for him. So he's really got kind of two open pathways, and depending on what he wants to do when he gets out of the military, does he want to stay more involved with the field work and things that are going on there? He might want to move into project management. If he wants to kind of step maybe a little bit away from the field work and do more design, then the RCDD would make a lot of sense for it.
Very cool. It's funny you keyed in on that security clearance, because that's one of the things I was going to point out to him is that, if he has a security clearance, that's like the golden ticket right now. I mean, ever since 9/11, a lot of projects, especially for the federal government, require some level of security clearance. So
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely. That's a huge, that's like you said, the golden ticket.
yep.
You've got that, then having all the other things just makes it more valuable for your credentials that you hold.
Yeah, a company's more willing to invest in you to get your RTPM or your RCDD if you already have that security clearance, because you can't just, it's unlike the RCDD, you can't just go pay and take a class to get your security clearance. You have to have a sponsoring agency, and then there's an FBI background check, and there's got to be due cause to get a security clearance and stuff. So that's the hardest step of all. So if he's coming out with that security clearance, I'm one of the guys I'm mentoring. He just retired from the military, and he was when I was talking to him on the phone, he was almost like afraid of transitioning to the private sector. I was like, dude, you have the golden ticket. You're gonna have people chasing you down. Once they find out you have the clearance and you already had your. That's not this person, by the way. It's another person I'm mentoring. He has a BICSI. Actually, he has a BICSI technician certificate, and I think he's also a certified trainer, if I remember right, through BICSI as well. So, and I want to apologize if you hear my puppy in the background. She's in the other room.
It's okay.
That's the thing about working at home, right? She's over there. I put her away and I put her in a crate, but she's over there whining now. So, so let me ask you, so we're going through COVID times, right? Hopefully we're on the backside of COVID now. Hopefully. How have you adapted your training for COVID stuff?
Sure. So that's actually a great question. So when COVID happened last year, March timeframe, that pretty much shut everything down as far as training and all. You couldn't get people together in groups and do all that. So we actually pivoted quite rapidly and converted our classrooms into what we call virtual classroom training. So, the nice thing is with the social distancing issues, with people working from home, this kind of combines some of the best traits of in-person classes with the flexibility of a virtual classroom, because you don't have to travel and go anywhere. So we use a platform. We send the invites out to the students and they log in, and it allows us to actually run our courses, like our design classes or our installation classes, virtually. So for our design classes, what we've done is we've taken all the prints and everything else, and we've actually converted them, and we use Microsoft Excel and Word and PowerPoint and converted all those things over into those documents so that students could actually participate in the classes, and we can break them out into their groups like what we would do in a normal in-person class. And they can collaborate together by sharing their screen, and they can all work on their designs, or in the case of project management, their project. They can work on those things as a group and then come back and present it just like they would be doing in a normal classroom environment. For our installation program, what we've done is we've taken blocks and in some cases the tools necessary for the class, and we've boxed those up and we ship them to the students. So that when the students is taking like the Installer 1 class, they're getting a 66 block, they're getting a 110 block, they're getting cable, 25 pair and Cat5, they're getting a coax cable, they're getting F connectors and all these things. Now they of course have to provide some of their own hand tools, but if they're coming into this industry, they're probably going to have these tools anyways. They're going to have a 110 tool and a 66 tool. They're going to have a compression tool for being able to do the F connectors. So we ship all those things to the students, and then as they're going through the class with their web cameras, they're actually able to hold these things up, the jacks and all, and show that they've terminated them and terminate them correctly. And then the instructors can give feedback. Same thing for the Installer 2 copper class. We're sending out Gigabix blocks, and we're sending out shielded jacks, Cat6A cable, shielded Cat6A cable, and all these things that are required for the class, a 210 block. So they have to go through and actually terminate these and show those to the instructor that they've done them correctly. So we've managed to pivot those classes, all of our design classes virtually, and our Installer 1 and our Installer 2 Copper class virtually. Unfortunately, due to the equipment requirements for the fiber class and the technician class, we really couldn't pivot those to a virtual environment because we can't ship a fusion splicer out to every student. We can't ship, a termination kit out to every student. It would be very expensive and cost prohibitive. Plus, we would have the risk of those equipment not being returned to us possibly. So that's kind of where we are with our virtual classes. And I've taught our PM class and the data center class virtually, and I have to say that it works out really well. I mean, it's not the same as an in-person class, but nothing virtual ever is. But it does give the students the ability to work together and learn from each other as well from the instructor.
Yeah, the more senses you can incorporate into the learning process, the better chance you have of retention. That's why I've always preferred face-to-face classes. But there are some people that absolutely thrive in a virtual class environment. There's that segment, absolutely. Are you going to keep these changes post-COVID?
So right now, everything in the air is up with COVID. Nobody knows. CDC released new guidelines. Everybody's still trying to figure out what that means. We still teach our IN 250 and our TE 350 classes in Tampa. We have since earlier this year, late last year, early this year, we started bringing students in, social distancing, limiting the class size, doing all those things so that we could still run those courses. What the future holds at this point, I'm not really certain. Right now, through the next several months, we're still running VCT classes. That's probably going to continue for a little while longer. Again, it's really going to depend on what COVID and what the guidance is going to be from the CDC and other organizations and how travel is going to happen. So, stay tuned. Visit the BICSI website. When classes open up and they're going to be in person, they're going to be listed on there. Otherwise, we've got the virtual option, at least for the near future.
So that talks about the class part. How do you handle the exam portion of the certification?
Sure. So for all of our design classes, for the last several years, individuals, once they want to take an exam, they have to apply to the credentialing department at BICSI. They go online, you fill out your application now, and it's the same for the installation. Everything's online. You complete the application, and then you'll be given a application approval and a notice that you can actually go take your exam. And then you'll go to the Pearson VUE website, and you'll have a code that you'll put in, and you'll pick a date and a location for a Pearson VUE facility to take the written exam. For the installation classes, it's a little bit different. For the installation classes, there's a hands-on portion that has to be completed. So you'll go through the class. You still have to complete your application online. You'll tell them what class that you're going to take or what time you want to take a hands-on exam. And you'll go through, you'll take your hands-on exam, which again, you'll have to have a camera. You can't have anything in the room. It's much like any kind of proctored virtual test. You go through and they'll have to complete the tasks that are assigned to each course level for the 101 and the Installer 1 and the Installer 2 Copper. Once that's done, then they have the option, they'll be given a little ticket, we call it the golden ticket. They're given that information, they go to Pearson VUE, and again, they can schedule their exam to go take their written exam at a Pearson VUE testing facility. The nice thing about the Pearson VUE is they have an option where you can actually do it virtually. So for those locations here in the United States where things were closed down, the Pearson VUE facilities weren't open, then they would actually have a virtual proctor come on. They would do the test through your computer and be able to let you take your DCDC or RCDD exam or one of the other exams or your Installer 1 or your Installer 2 Copper exam virtually.
You guys still do the exams there at BICSI headquarters?
So we do not. We stopped doing written exams at the headquarters a couple years ago. We moved entirely over to Pearson VUE for the testing. It's one of those things as far as being able to meet certain guidelines for your credentialing programs is to try to remove that testing component away from where instructors could potentially be at. So that's one of the reasons why that kind of moved off. And it adds some credence to our program that, we're not out there just pushing people through to get tests. I mean, we're out there, our credentialing programs, we're trying to make sure are top notch, that individuals that are out there, they are not something that's, an organization that's just running people through and giving them a sheet of paper. You have to really earn these credentials.
And that's the big thing is it's we found that, in delivering classes, because, most manufacturers, when they have the warranty programs, they have what I call their pizza diploma program, right? So you know exactly what I'm talking about just from your response. And for those who may not know what that means, it means somebody from the manufacturer come out and say, look, here's our new jacks. Here's our new cable. Thank you for coming. There's a pizza in the back, right? That's why I love the BICSI programs, because they're not pizza diploma programs. They are good, solid content. And when you get done, you're going to feel like you ran through the bushes and you've earned that certificate. It's not just given to you. Not
Right.
just given to you.
Well, I always tell people, it's like drinking from a fire hose, and you try to retain the best that you can. But one of the things that, as an ICT person, and I've been in the career for 28 years, you always are going to learn, as long as you keep learning, because some of the things that like I'll never probably see a Twin-X cable again in my life. I know how to terminate one. I know how to test it. I know how to set up token ring networks. That knowledge is no longer valid. I mean, that's gone. Now you need to learn about how to terminate and set up for 40 gig networks, 100 gig networks. I mean, it's the technology's changed. So the nice thing about our industry is, if you like to learn, which I do, it's a great industry to be in because it's ever changing. Something new is happening all the time.
Yeah, the best you could be is a constant learner in this industry, and I strive to learn 2 new things every day, and it helps keeps me fresh and stuff. That's why I started the TDM study group, because I realized I passed my RCDD on the 8th edition, and I haven't really touched that book since I passed my RCDD. So I was like, some things have changed. So that's why I started reading. I was like, I'll do better with this if I have a group that holds me accountable. That's why we created the whole group, and we just get together once a week. And that's the first thing we always ask: did you get your reading done?
That's a lot of reading.
And it does it does motivate you to do your reading when you guys get in front of a bunch of people and say, yeah, no, I didn't do my reading. Yeah. So it helps hold you accountable. A while back, I heard this thing called Project Refresh, where you redid your classrooms. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So a couple years ago, we went through and we changed up our classrooms. The BICSI headquarters was getting a little dated, and we wanted to incorporate some new things into our facility, some new AV, some new technology, advance where we were. So we went through and we actually redesigned our classrooms. And this is actually one of the BICSI classrooms right here. This is Classroom C in our Tampa headquarters. And if you take a look, we've got our table set up here, and we've got all of our racks. One of the big changes that we made was our previous classrooms basically were built out like 2 TRs. You had a bunch of blocks and everything in one location, and then the same thing duplicated in another part of the classroom. So that was great for showing kind of how a TR laid out, but it didn't really help students because they kind of got in each other's way. You can only put so many people in front of a wall field. So what we did was we decided that we would separate it out, and we would build individual workstations for the students, so that as they go through, they could learn how to properly route and terminate cables, properly terminate jacks, do the labeling, properly terminate on racks and all. So if you notice here, we have actual 16 individual workstations in each one of the classrooms. And we have a 66 block, we have an LSA style block, we've got a BICS frame here, we've got a 110 frame, then we've got a 210 frame, and then we've got a gigabix block, as well as a single panel fiber housing at the top. And then we have our racks on here where we've actually got our patch panels, both for shielded and your standard Cat5e, your 6, and then your 6A shielded over on here. And then each one of the workstations, if you notice, you come down, it's kind of hard to see here, every other workstation in between them, we have actual outlets that are run up through conduit through a properly sized pull box. And then they pull these over from the individual work outlets, and they drop them into the basket tray where they route them over and they terminate them in the proper locations on the racks. So this gives the students not only the ability to work together because they've got to share and pull their 2 cables for their jacks, but they also have their own individual work areas where they've got to terminate their cable, both their multi-pair cable and their individual 4-pair cables on different types of outlets based on the class level that they're taking.
So as you know, as we talked about earlier, I did take my instructor class there. It's changed a lot. I like the way it looks. I like the
A
way it
whole lot.
looks. Yeah.
So all of the lighting in the classroom is PoE. All these high bay lights are PoE. They actually have two 5E cables that are going to them for powering PoE, and they all run to this consolidation point that's located up in the ceiling. And that's another great example because a lot of students, they hear about consolidation points, but they've never seen one. So here's a properly designed and installed consolidation point for the PoE lighting, which goes back to our telecommunications room where the PoE switches are located at. This allows us, if we wanted to do moves, adds, and changes with the high bay lights, we wouldn't have to go all the way back to the TR. We could just change out the routing for the cables right here to the actual consolidation point that's at the top. We've got AV that's listed in the room. There's actually two projectors that are in the room. You can see one of them right here. There's one of them further to the left. Our outlets here on the desk allows us to connect to a PC that's located in the TR to display the presentation. You can also hook a laptop up and you can split the screen so you can show something on one screen, something else on the other screen. We've got an amazing high zoom camera that's actually located above this desk that allows the instructors to zoom in, and if they're terminating outlets on the desk, they can actually zoom in, and that allows the entire class to be able to see what's going on without having to crowd around a single instructor. And everybody's kind of jostling to be able to see what's going on. It allows them to present that. Especially useful when somebody's showing fiber, because fiber is so small. So you can throw a fusion splicer up there and you can actually show all the steps with fusion splicing, or if you're doing the cleave and crimp or the epoxy polish type method, you can actually show that really well. And
yeah, I remember when I took my trainer class, and when you take the trainer class, the first week they teach you the class, right? The installer, the install. Actually, back then it was installer 1, installer 2, and technician, but now it's installer copper, installer fiber. And then the second week, they divide the class up, and then you had to teach portions of that class back to the class and to the instructor. I don't know if that's still the same way or not, but so one of the ones I got assigned was 66 blocks. And I remember vividly sitting there teaching people how to use 66 blocks. And you're exactly right. They were all crowded around me and looking over top of me, and it didn't feel comfortable as an instructor. So I really like that Zoom camera thing. Because I do a lot of classes virtually, I might have to talk to my wife and have her green light me buying another camera to mount directly above me.
Yeah, it works really well. I mean, it zooms in well enough that you can see the hairs on the back of your hand. I mean,
Wow.
it's amazing
Wow.
how the clarity and detail. I mean, it's an HD camera, and it has a very high zoom on it. So again, I mean, it's one of those things that when we looked at what are the things that we can do to enhance the students' learning experience in the classroom, and that was one of the things that we'd settled on. We've got in the classroom as well, we have the speaker systems that are in there so that students can hear when we play videos and all that, because our classes have become not the death by PowerPoint that many classes that you'll sit through and you're like, oh great, another slide, but we have videos and activities and pictures that are included in that content so that students can actually see what they're learning about, not necessarily just seeing some words written up on a screen. Okay, core and cladding. Yeah, okay, that's some things that are on a fiber, but actually see what that is so they can understand how that actually works and operates, especially for individuals who aren't new to the industry. I mean, or who are new to the industry or who don't understand concepts. Pictures explain a whole lot more than words do.
I agree 100%. And for those, kind of doing a callback to our conversation earlier, and for those who gripe and moan about BICSI being a nonprofit, there's your money right there. There's your money. A high zoom camera, not cheap. Having to retrofit a classroom like this to put conduit in the concrete floor, not cheap. All this equipment, even though some of it gets donated, you still have to assemble, you still have to put it together. It all costs money. That's the money going back in right there. So I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. And that's why you'll always hear me talk good about BICSI and always talk, always put them in a good light, because I think for our industry, they've done a lot for us. I really do.
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to come to work for BICSI was to give back to the industry. I mean, the ICT industry has been fantastic to me over the years, and being able to be hired as an instructor and give back to students and be able to share knowledge and learn. I mean, I can't say that I've ever had a class that I didn't learn things from the students and learn from their experiences and the things that they've done. But being able to give knowledge and be able to assist with, like the project refresh here and the things that we did and all the other documents and things that we put out, the publications and the standards, it's just great to be able to participate in that, which kind of leads me into segueing into one thing. We are an association and we have committees. And we are always looking for people on those committees. So if you're interested in, if your viewers are interested in any of these committees, I would highly recommend to reach out. We are an association. We are run by our committees, and these committees are the ones that actually help. BICSI Cares oversees our charitable endeavors that we do. If you've ever been to a BICSI conference and seen where we give money out to worthy causes, and these are not causes that typically are well known. These are causes that have budgets that usually are far less than the money that we donate to them. And that's really what's important is, we're trying to help others that are just outside of our industry. Our ethics committee that we've got, they administer the standards of conduct and code of ethics that we have so that we can enhance the professional value of our BICSI members and those holding our BICSI credentials. The Registration and Credentialing Supervision Committee is there to develop, maintain, and oversee all of BICSI's professional and occupational registration and certification programs that we've got. We want to make sure they're globally recognized, and we have great efficacy for our program. We have our standards program. This is where our standards are developed and individuals get together, that the experts that are in the field or people who have the experience in the field get together and create our standards. We have the Technical Information and Methods Committee. Those are the group that's responsible for writing and updating our BICSI design and installation technical manuals. So our best practices on there. So we get our subject matter experts that they come in and they are given tasks in the areas that they are subject matter experts, and they provide content for these documents. And then we have our professional development department, and that's got 4 working groups that are in there. That's the Future Educational and Needs and Trends Committee, or group, I should say, the Emerging Professionals and Students Group, Cabling Skills Challenge, and Women in BICSI. That's the group that helps advance our industry through the professional credentials that we have, or our organization. So, highly recommend. Don't just come and get a credential and walk away, but do like everybody else is, that if you really care about our industry, you need to give back to it. So it's a great idea to go through and join one of these committees, give back to the organization and to the ICT community that's out there so that we can advance it, because that's the only way we're going to be able to advance our industry and make sure that everybody is doing things the way it should be done.
Yeah, when I see, because I'm on LinkedIn quite often, because that's one of the platforms I use to put my stuff out there. Oh, that reminds me, I forgot to put up my acronym challenge today. Dang it. Sorry, guys. I'll get it out this afternoon, I promise. So when I see people post that they got their RCDD, I always tell them congratulations, but they always challenge them. How are you going to give back now? Because, you do have to give back to the industry. And that's the whole reason I started this podcast, is to give back to the industry that treated me so well. The same reason you're doing what you're doing is, as well. So, and the hardest part about doing volunteer work with BICSI committees is starting it, just getting up the courage to send out the email, because I've participated in several. They do conference calls. You don't have to fly and stay at the conferences. I mean, they do them via conference call. You just call in and you listen, and they email back and forth. They make it really easy to participate, really easy. And you get to meet some really cool people. You get a more broader perspective of our industry, because you might be meeting with another manufacturer, you might be meeting with a competitor, you might be meeting with a customer, and they bring their viewpoints to that committee, which I think expands it and makes the content even better. So
it's a networking. I mean, just the networking and being able to meet different people from, not just in the United States, but different cultures, different places, and understand how things are different globally. And, you never know, you might have a project in sub-Saharan Africa that you need to find somebody to do, or Australia or somewhere else, or, even here in the United States, if you got a project on the other side of the country, just the networking alone allow you to find somebody that that you can have a relationship with and possibly get their feedback or send them work and they send you work. I mean, the networking opportunities are fantastic. So committees are great. Just if you want to give back to the industry, I would highly recommend doing that.
Yep, absolutely. And that's why I love the BICSI conferences, because you get the network and stuff like that as well. I think the Vegas one's going to be a hybrid, right? It's going to be part virtual, part in real, in face-to-face, I think.
That is correct. So it's supposed to be, they're going to have both the in-person, which they'll have the normal sessions that are going to happen there, and then they're going to have the virtual conference, much like what we had for the winter conference and the previous fall conference, where there'll be an online portion for that.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate your time, Christopher. If somebody wants to reach out and learn more, what's the best way for them to find out more about BICSI and their programs?
So the best way to find out about the programs is go to our website, which is bicsi.org. If you go to that website, you can find everything out about our organization. You can learn about the credentialing programs that we have. You can learn about the educational programs we have. If you want to look at the standards and the best practices manuals and potentially order those, you can do that from our website. If you want to join one of the committees, it's on our website. Everything is there that you could possibly need to find out about BICSI and participate.
Very good. Well, I appreciate your time, and it was a pleasure having you on the show. It's finally good to get to meet you face to face. And I promise the next conference you come up to me, I will remember you.
That's okay. Like I said, with the beard, it's been a little bit different, but now most of the people that know me know that I have a beard. I've had it for about 3 years now, so I think I'm going to shave it off. Then they won't recognize me again.
Yeah, you do meet a lot of people at the conferences. I have people come up to me all the time, and just after a while, it's a streamline of faces. It really is. Well, thanks again, Christopher, and I hope we have another interview soon and another subject matter.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
All right, take care.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.